Shalom, shalom, everyone. What a beautiful day to be at peace. Have shalom. Have shalom in our hearts, because the authority that is inside of us should be the master of our hearts, thus bringing us shalom, adding everything that needs to be added and subtracting everything that needs to be subtracted. And there are times when we have to go through things to add what needs to be added and to subtract what needs to be subtracted. So Yahuah, Father, we thank you, Yahuah, for the shalom, being in line with everything that you breathed, digging deep into your scriptures, understanding, Father, that even through the fiery trials that are seeming to get hotter and hotter, Yahuah, that even through the trials, even through the persecution, even through the pressure, even through the hardships, Yahuah, that if we just stay in your shalom, that we will be whole and we will be complete. We will be mature heads that are ready for the harvest. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Okay, so today we're going to continue on with healing to thy navel and marrow to thy bones. My hope is this will be the last part. Let's see where we left off. Okay. We were at the well-watered garden. And if you haven't seen the part before this, hence the part before that, hence the part before that, this will not give, while the word can, everything can stand on its own per se, but it will not give the full context. I would just encourage you to watch all the parts. And I'll put my email under this part. And if anybody just has any other ideas, I would sure like to hear them. Praise Yahuah. So we were left off with the blotting out. And we saw that he was going to blot out from the root line, the marrow, that was the DNA that was not of him, that was in the bones. That's where we left off at. So now we're going to kind of shift, and we're going to look at a well-watered garden. Genesis 2, 4-10. These are the births of the Shemaim and the Eretz, when they were Bara created, in the day that Yahuah Eloah made the earth, the Eretz, and the heavens, the Shemaim. Now no shrub of the field was yet on the earth, and no plant of the field had yet sprung up, for Yahuah Eloah had not sent rain on the earth, and there was no man to till the ground. But a mist went up from the Eretz and watered the entire surface of the ground. Verse 6, we're going to look at two words. 6. Watered. So, when we first started out this study, we talked about there being more than one word for quote-unquote marrow, and we took a good look at the word that was the overall picture for marrow, and we went the way of the blood cells being made in the red marrow as opposed to the root of the yellow marrow becoming the fat. So as we come back and we look at this, but there went up a mist from the earth, and we know that Yahuah hovered. There you go, Donna, there it is. He hovered over the waters, and he said, there was a sound, there was a frequency, he breathed his DNA, and it became light. So there went up a mist from the earth and watered the whole face of the ground. So that water would have been what he originally spoke into. So this watered. Oh, yeah, that was a rabbit trail, huh, Donna? So this watered comes from the root line of where we saw the marrow. This is really what I'm thinking looks like the seed bed. Even Benner's got it used as a type of butter, and is it? It is. But this is the word for marrow, and then we saw it in Job 21:24, where there was moistening to the bones. Some translations say marrow to the bones. Okay? I see this as being the picture of the red marrow and the seed bed. And right here we can see in the same root line this word for watered, 1479 HV. It's a drink. Okay, sometimes we see it translated as a drink. It's the Hebrew word shakah, the life-giving water from the rivers. And of course here is our word for marrow that we originally started out with. The pictograph shin is a picture of the two front teeth representing the idea of two. The kuf is a picture of the sun at the horizon and cycles around the earth. Combined, these mean repeat a cycle. During the rain seasons, repeated each year, the riverbeds become full of water. The surrounding land is soaked with water, allowing for the planting of crops. So here we have this repeating of a cycle. It's already been revealed by Yahuah. Actually, that hay can be a breath. It's already been breathed in. It's just like the seed bed that's in the marrow that is constantly making new and cycling and cycling and cycling. And it's just like water. Mist here came up from the earth and watered it. Mist came up again and watered it. Rivers flow and water, and it repeats over and over and over again. So we have this mist. I forgot where mist went. So we have this mist that watered. What did it water with? It watered with the L to the Ta. Inside of this water was what was breathed, was what was spoken, was the seed that was everything from the L to the Ta that watered the face of the ground. How beautiful is this? I mean, what a picture he's given us, that what's going on inside of us is what's happening out here, is what's happening on a grander scale in the Shemayim. What happens on a micro scale happens on a macro scale. What a beautiful picture he has painted for us. We can see it right from the beginning when he hovered over the waters. There it is again. Verse 7. And Yahuah formed the man out of the dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living being. And Yahuah planted a garden in Eden, to the east, and there he put the man whom he had formed. And out of the ground Yahuah made every tree grow that is pleasant to the sight, and good for food, with the tree of life in the midst of the garden, and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And a river went out of Eden to water the garden, and from there it divided and became 4 river heads. Okay, so in verse 10, this river that went out, now, so the mist came up from the earth and watered the whole face of the ground. Obviously, it formed a river and went out and made 4 heads. So this river, the river could have just been there. Actually, maybe didn't come from the mist. I don't know. I've never thought about it. Be interested to hear your thoughts. This river is 1319 GN. It's a river, the life-giving water that washes over the soil. Because water gives life. The DNA was planted in the water. The DNA was surrounded by water. Oh gosh. It's a 2-letter parent root, the Nun and the Resh. The action is plow, the concrete is light. The Nun is a seed, the Resh is the head of man, representing top or beginning. Combine these mean seed beginning. It's a picture of the seed beginning. What was in these rivers as Yahuah hovered over the waters and breathed his seed and said, let it be light, let it create, let it make, let it be light. Light's a whole nother study. The seed beginning. And it's the same thing we see in our root line where we started out for the moistening of the bones. What happens on a micro scale happens on a macro scale. Obviously, we don't see marrow in the rivers. Obviously, we don't see quote-unquote marrow in the Shemayim, in the heavens above us. It's all a picture. Wow. Okay, so does water affect DNA? We're going to go to this article. You can put it in your browsers. I don't generally pull the articles up here just because, you know, eventually they're going to have something to say, I'm sure, about what I'm saying, but not yet. Getting closer. Science Daily. April 27, 2011. Water, the summary of this article is, wait. The source of this is the Helmholtz Association of German Research Centers. There you have it. Summary. Water molecules surround the genetic material, DNA, in a very specific way. water molecules surround the genetic material DNA in a very specific way. Scientists have discovered that, on the one hand, the texture of this hydration shell depends on the water content, and, on the other hand, actually influences the structure of the genetic substance itself. Let us think about how we resonate with those things that are around us. How does that influence the structure of the genetic substance of our DNA, let alone if someone tries to physically change it so we resonate differently? These findings are not only important in understanding the biological function of DNA, they could also be used for the construction of new DNA-based materials. The DNA's double helix, let me say that again. The DNA's helix never occurs in isolation. Instead, its entire surface is always covered by water molecules. Wow. Which attach themselves with the help of hydrogen bonds. But the DNA does not bind all molecules the same way. We've been able to verify that some of the water is bound stronger, whereas other molecules are less so, notes Dr. Karim Fahmy, head of the Biophysics Division at the Institute of Radiochemistry. This is, however, only true if the water content is low. When the water sheet swells, these differences are adjusted, and all hydrogen bonds become equally strong. Maybe we need to drink more water. Yes, I'm talking to myself. I need to quit mentioning Donna all the time too, huh, Donna? This, in turn, changes the geometry of the DNA strand. The backbone of the helix, which consists of sugar and phosphate groups, bends slightly. The precise DNA structure depends on the specific amount of water surrounding the molecule, summarizes Dr. Fahmy. Okay, that's really just wanted to talk about the fact that DNA was surrounded by water, and depending on the amount of water or the more or less, some are stronger around it and some are lesser, depending on the amount of water. And we just have this beautiful picture of Yahuah hovered over the waters and breathed his seed into it. And then we have the pictures of the well-watered garden, well-watered with everything from the L to the Ta. And even just to think about the fact that the cells are in the blood and all that the blood means, which is a whole nother thing. So now I want to go back to something I mentioned in the last part, and I did not say anything about it then, but I'm going to say something about it now. I can't remember if it's Jeremiah 20 or 23, so let me go look at 20 first, and I'll tell you where it's at. It must be 23. Must be 23. Okay, Jeremiah 23 verse 9. And again, we looked at it last time. We're going to pull it up here. And I want to point something out for those that want to dig a little deeper, especially in this direction. And this is Jeremiah speaking about the lying prophets, etc., etc., leading Yehudah astray, because Yisrael, well, I guess he was speaking to all of Yisrael, but only Yehudah was still around at this time. But anyway, so I believe. Yeah, because they, oh my goodness, the rooster crowed. Sorry. Yisrael would have been in captivity with the shore by at this point. So, I do believe. If I'm wrong, I apologize. Timelines are not my strong suit. Verse 9, my heart within me is broken because of the prophets. All my bones shake. I am like a drunken man, and like a man overcome by wine, because of Yahuah and because of his set-apart words. My bones, his bones, we all know we've talked about these bones all the way through here. His bones shake. Okay? And it's the stirrings and the shakings of a bird in a nest. It means innocent. It means to cover. It comes from the het pay. Can't remember what root line it is off the top of my head right now to give you a number anyway to go look at it. Just that it's the het pay. And it's H7363. Oh, that's not going to work. This is used 3 times in Scripture. Again, I think it probably goes back to the het pay root line, and the way that certain groups of Orthodox people have done all kinds of stuff with their dots and their dashes and their dagashes and all this business. We may have more, we may have less, we may not have the resh that should be at the beginning. It may supposed to be there. I haven't looked up this one particularly. H7363. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep, and the spirit of Eloah fluttered. It moved upon the face of the waters. I do not think Yahuah was shaking in his shoes. Okay? Now, Jeremiah had been shaking in his boots, just like I talked about before. But that's a physical picture of a man that I spoke of. What I want to say is that inside of him, he knew, because of the marrow in his bones and the cells that were being made, and it being the seedbed of the DNA, and the DNA being surrounded by water, he was full of the seed. This resonated, these lying prophets resonated, and what was coming upon all Yisrael. I know he talks about the latter days. What was coming on Yehudah then, what came on Yisrael, what will be coming on both tribes. It resonated because of the water that surrounded his DNA, because his DNA was of Yahuah, as much as can be for living in a sinful, fallen world. That's why his heart was broken, because that's what pumps the blood. The authority inside of him pumps that DNA surrounded by that water inside that blood cell throughout his body by the authority that is inside of him. So while as a man his bones may have been shaken, there's a reason why. And the reason why is because of what was going to happen, but because he understood, because he had eyes to see, and because he had ears to hear. It's the same picture We have it on a macro scale in Genesis 1 verse 2. We have it on a micro scale in Jeremiah 23:9. And as you look at Deuteronomy 32:11, the other place that's used, wow, I didn't see this before. It is on, I want to say it's on a terrestrial, no, it's not the word I want. It's here on the earthly level. I can't think of the word I want to use. The same word. Speaking of this is speaking of Yahuah again, covering his young. And I talked about it in the garden video, what I really think this word is. It is how we resonate. It is how we resonate because of the water that is surrounding our DNA. I think the plasma in the blood is 90% water or something like that. I don't know. I have to go back. I looked at a bunch of stuff. We're full of water. Why? Because it surrounds the DNA. Because it causes all the other parts of our body to resonate with the magnetism. So people will call it a toroidal field or a torus around us. Our scriptures are so deep. We've got a surface level. We've got understanding, a little bit deeper level. I know they call it PRDS, I think. Well, whatever, fine. But then we've got an understanding on an agricultural biolinguistic level. And then we've got an understanding that goes one level deeper. And there's probably more. I don't know. The more I read, the more I find out just how not smart I am. We have this beautiful picture hidden in our scriptures of the marrow and the bones and how we first watered the earth. From the Shemaim we have this picture. In the Eret realm we have this picture. And in our biological selves we have this same picture. You can't make this stuff up. You can't make it up. And on that note, you just can't make this stuff up. Here's something that another sister in Messiah found. Thank you, Stephanie. And I just, the day she sent me this, my scriptures were open to Ezekiel 37. So, this is from AWS Amazon. And AWS Amazon is a subsidiary of Amazon. Okay, so this isn't some offshoot of some strange thing that isn't Amazon. It's a subsidiary of Amazon. Okay, we're going to go to this link. Oh, I've got it open already. And when you go to this link, we're going to go down to section 42 and number 10. Now, I did do some research on this. And, it's talking about the Amazon lumberyard engine. And I thought, what does a lumberyard have to do with this? Well, then I did some more research. And what I think this lumberyard is an open source code forum, or something to that effect, where and they based it on a German company called their first game was Far Cry, and it was called, I don't know, they had Far in their name. I can't remember what it was. Maybe I've still got it up. Lumberyard in AWS allows developers to build or host their games on Amazon servers. Oh, it was based on a company called CryEngine, which was licensed from Crytek, which came out of Germany. And And supposedly it was based, this first game they invented, Far Cry, looks like it was based on a few real cults that may have possibly inspired this game. Or so they say, cults. Okay? Because this one here that they speak of first, I don't think was a cult. Okay, so 4210. In this section. And this is part of their agreement. Acceptable use. Safety critical systems. Your use of lumberyard materials must comply with the AWS acceptable use policy. The lumberyard materials are not intended for use with life-critical or safety-critical systems, such as in the operation of medical equipment, automated transportation systems, autonomous vehicles, aircraft or air traffic control, nuclear facilities, manned spacecraft, or military use in connection with live combat. So you can't use any of this gaming platforms for any of those things, because it's supposed to be a gaming platform. Okay, that makes sense. However, this restriction will not apply in the event of the occurrence certified by the United States Center for Disease Control or successor body, end quote, of a widespread viral infection transmitted via bites or contact with bodily fluids that causes human corpses to reanimate and seek to consume living flesh, blood, brain, or nerve tissue, and is likely to result in the fall of organized civilization. I don't even have words for that. And, you know, okay, I get it. Sounds zombie-ish. I got it. Now think about everything that's going on around and what they're up to. And where in the world did they get this idea to begin with about reanimating human corpses? Not for Yahuah, not for the kingdom, but to consume living flesh, blood, brain, and nerve tissue that is likely to result in the fall of organized civilization. We're not... There's where did they get this idea? Okay. Because, really. Because what we see them doing here, the adversary, the enemy, is generally things that we see in the scriptures. And the adversary always trying to be evil, which we're supposed to turn from. But it is evilness at the same time he wants to be Yahuah. Reanimate. Bring to life. I wonder what animate. Let's go see what the definition of animate is. I've never looked it up. I mean, I know what animate means, but let's see if it's in the 1828 Webster's. You guys, this is online. Anybody can look at anything up. It's a great dictionary. To give natural life to quicken, to make alive, as the soul animates the body, to give powers to, or to heighten the powers or effect of a thing, as to animate a lyre, or a harp, or a instrument that would play the seed beginning. Oh my God. Wow. Definition number 3, to give spirit or vigor, to infuse courage, joy, or other enlivening passion, to stimulate or incite, as to animate dispirited troops, to give spirit or vigor, to give natural life, to make alive. That is the definition in the 1828 dictionary. So with that being said, let's go to Ezekiel 37. And let's read. And the hand of Yahuah was upon me, and took me out by the Spirit of Yahuah, and set me down in the midst of the valley, and it was filled with bones. Bones weren't burned up yet. This place was filled with bones, and if you have bones, you can have DNA. And he made me pass among them all around, and see, there were very many on the surface, on the face of the valley, and see, they were very dry. They had no water. You need water to produce fresh DNA. You also need blood supply, or it will die. If there's no marrow in your bones, there's no possibility for life, because you can't make any more blood cells. And water is a necessary part of the process. And that's all stuff you can go look up. We're not going to read all those articles because you can look it up. And he said to me, Son of man, very dry means to be dried up, as well as withered, ashamed, or confused. Okay. And he said to me, Son of man, would these bones live? Remember the definition for animate? Reanimate? And I said, O Master Yahuah, you know. Again he said to me, prophesy to these bones. Prophesy. Noon comes from the nooned bait, to plant the seed. Water the seed. The seed of the house. To these bones, and you shall say to them, breathe this. Anyway, let me read, and you get to remember that definition for animate. Again he said to me, prophesy to these bones, and you shall say to them, O dry bones, hear the words of Yahuah. Hear it. It's a sound. It's a frequency. Resonate with it. And obey. Thus says the Master Yahuah to these bones, see, I am bringing into you a spirit. We saw that in the definition. And you shall live. And I shall put sinews on you, and bring flesh upon you, and cover you with skin, and put a spirit in you, and you shall live. Not to eat flesh and brain and tissue, but to live unto Yahuah in the kingdom. And you shall know that I am Yahuah, not Amazon AWS, or the CDC, or anybody other successor body. And I prophesied as I was commanded. And as I prophesied, there was a noise, and there was a rattling. And these bones came together, bone to bone, because speaking what Yahuah says brings the body together, speaks to the bone, resonates to the bone, because the bones are the tree of the body. And I looked and saw sinews and flesh came upon them, and skin covered them, but there was no spirit in them. He then said to me, prophesy to the spirit, prophesy, son of man, and you shall say to the spirit, thus said the Master Yahuah, come from the four winds, O spirit, and breathe on these killed ones, so that they live. And I prophesied as he commanded me, and the Spirit came into them, and they lived, and stood upon their feet, a very great army. And he said to me, Son of man, not an army that's going to go around and eat flesh and brains and tissue. And he said, well, let me not say that. And he said to me, Son of man, these bones are all the house of Yisrael. See, they say, our bones are dry, and our expectancy has perished. Their hope and our expectancy is Yahuah, who came to rescue us, who created everything by him and through him and for him, with his word, his frequency, his breath, which is everything from the El to the Ta. Our bones are dry and our expectancy has perished, and we ourselves have been cut off. Therefore prophesy, and you shall say to them, Thus says the Master Yahuah, See, O my people, I am opening your burial sites, and shall bring you up from your burial sites, and shall bring you into the land of Yisrael. Seems to me these are second resurrection people. And you shall know that I am Yahuah when I open your burial sites. Not that the burial sites won't be open for the first resurrection people, because there is a first resurrection. Those that will reign with him and rule for 1,000 years. And I shall put my spirit in you, and you shall live. And I shall settle you in your own land, and you shall know that I, Yahuah, have spoken, and I have done it, declares Yahuah. So you have two opposite ends of the spectrum. You have AWS, subsidiary of Amazon. See my hands going off the screen, Sylvia. AWS, Amazon, CDC, subsequent bodies that they might become or get connected to, or however that works. Looking and thinking of reanimation to eat flesh and tissue and brains and whatever else that says. Then you have Yahuah, the other end of the spectrum, looking to bring back the entire body of Yisrael alive with the DNA and the water that is needed to moisten the marrow that's needed to moisten the bones, and the water that's around the DNA that would resonate with him. You have two opposite ends of the spectrum. All that's going around that the enemy would be trying to bring forth, at least most of it even, you can find the opposite of it right here in the scriptures. Because he's nasty. He's just as a nasty could be. And we need to be so familiar with the truth that when the counterfeit looms on the horizon, we recognize it immediately. And get off the video games. That's my 2 cents. Let us continue on. Verse 15. And the word of Yahuah came to me, saying, And you, son of man, take a stick for yourself and write on it, for Yehudah and the children of Yisrael, his companions. Then take another stick and write on it, for Yosef, the stick of Ephraim, and for all the house of Yisrael, his companions. Then bring them together for yourself into one stick, and they shall become one in your hand. Okay, so we're going to go to verse 16 in Ezekiel 37. Take thee one stick, Ihad, Yahad. I don't know which one it says. Ahad. And what's this stick? This stick is tree, the upright and firmness of the tree. The elders of the tribe were upright and firm ones making decisions. Okay, so take ye this stick, Ayin Zadi. And what did we say? 86106. This is a tree. What does this start with? Your Ayin Zadi. Comes from the Ayin Zadi. This is your Ayin Zadi, because the bones are the tree of the body. In the first part of Yehezkel, we have what's happening on a micro scale. In the second part of Yehezkel, we have what's happening right here in our earthly realm. The bones are the tree of the body, and the marrow that's in the bones causes everything you do that pumps through your heart, the authority inside of you, causes you to do what we do. Our hands to do what they do, our feet to go where they go, our nose smells what it smells. It's all based on the DNA. But here we have a picture now in the realm. Some people think that's a new agey word. I don't think so, but I apologize for those who might think so. Here in the earthly realm, we have a picture of the tree as the bones of the body, and now here it comes together. Then bring them together for yourself into one stick, and they shall become one in your hand. And when the children of your people speak to you, saying, won't you show us what you mean by these? Say to them, thus says the Master Yahuah, see, I am taking the stick of Yosef, which is in the hand of Ephraim, and the tribes of Israel his companions, and I shall give them unto him with the stick of Yehudah, and make them one stick, and they shall be one in my hand. There's only going to be one body. There is one body under one head. You don't have two heads on one body, though we do see, because we live in a fallen state, we have seen that happen. You don't have two bodies in one head, though we do live in a fallen state, and that kind of thing has happened here in this sinful physical realm. And speak to them. Thus, verse 21, and speak to them. Thus said the Master Yahuah, see, I am taking the children of Israel from among the nations, wherever they have gone, and shall gather them from all around, and I shall bring them into their land. And it won't be defiled no more like it is right now. But let me tell you, we talked about it in another part, nasty. And I shall make them one nation in the land, and on the mountains of Israel, and one sovereign shall be over them all. And let them no longer be two nations, and let them no longer be divided into two reigns. And they shall no longer defile themselves with their idols, nor with their disgusting, like I said, nasty, nor with any of their transgressions. And I shall save them from all their dwelling places in which they have sinned, and shall cleanse them, because we turned and we repented. We came to the knowledge that we needed to fear Yahuah, and everything from the El to the Tall, to see that it's in its proper order, and turn our heads from dysfunction and from evil. And he will save us from these places where the sin is, where we had sinned. Repent. And I shall cleanse them, and they shall be my people, and I shall be their Eloah. While Daoud my servant is sovereign over them. And they shall all have one shepherd, and walk in my right rulings, and guard my laws, and shall do them. There will be no evil there. No sin, no sorrow, no suffering, no pain, no death. And they shall dwell in the land that I have given to Yahuah, my servant, where your fathers dwelt. And they shall dwell in it, and their children, and their children's children, forever. And my servant Daud be their prince, forever. Of course, this will be a new earth, new heaven, new earth. It will have been circumcised on the 8th great day by fire, because fire kills the DNA in the bones. And I shall make a covenant of peace with them, an everlasting covenant. We got shalom. And I shall place them and increase them, and shall place my set-apart place in their midst forever. And my dwelling place shall be over them, and I shall be their Eloah, and they shall be my people. One head, one body, one DNA, in its proper order, the truth, from the El to the Taw. And the nations shall know that I, Yahuah, am setting Israel apart, when my set-apart place is in their midst forever. I know it's so hot in here. Hallelujah. Well, that is an absolutely beautiful picture of this end and that end. Absolute opposites. Let's see what slide we're on, because we're almost at an hour. Okay, Hebrews 4:12. Let's go there. Talked about this some last time, about the blood flowing through you and the DNA being in your heart. Or actually, excuse me. Well, yeah. It's a picture of the soil of your heart. Lots of times you see soil, it's a picture of the soil of your heart, because that's where the blood runs through, because that's the authority inside of you. That's the seed you have. I didn't want to go into this too much. I did this in another study. The two-edged sword, I believe. For the word Eloah is living, right? Like the bones that are going to come back. And working, and sharper than any two-edged sword, cutting even to the dividing of the being and the spirit, of the joints and the marrow, and able to judge the thoughts and intentions of the heart. I've got some notes right there. It's just that simple. The sword of Yahuah is going to divide between the nefesh, our quote-unquote soul, and the spirit. So which way are we going? To judge the thoughts, which is the synapses in the brain that runs on an electrical system. Between that and the intentions of the heart. Okay? So it's really what matters is your heart intent. Oh, I think I'm going to do this. Yeah, this is going to look good, or make me look good, or make me go further, or make my ministry better, or make, if I do this way, then I should get this effect. It's all about the intent of your heart. What is the intent of your heart? Because that is the authority inside of you. According to the Hebrew language, the beit lamb. No, lamb bait, excuse me. Shepherd staff in the house. What is the intent of your heart? And the heart being, again, pumping the blood through that's made in the marrow that contains the DNA, which is the seedbed of whoever we're of. Constantly cycling. Okay, that's really all I wanted to say on that. now we're going to look at this website here. And for those of you that have someone cremated, okay, this does not mean that they're not going in either of the resurrections, because we know people were even burned at the stake, okay, and they were for Yahuah. We certainly know people of Yahuah that died in a fire, okay. So my dear friend that might take this and don't let it, it's not an end cremation here on earth, in my humble opinion. I have no scripture to prove it. I'm just going to show you what I know, and y'all need to make your own decision. But I do know someone who had someone cremated, and there were still bones in the ashes. So is this fire hot enough? I mean, maybe sometimes it is, maybe sometimes it isn't. We're going to read this article. Oh, that's not right. Oh, hopefully oh good, my internet didn't go down. Is this what I wanted? How is DNA preserved in cremated remains? Human bones are mainly composed of calcium phosphate and calcium carbonate. These molecules are extremely strong and give bones their characteristic strength and durability. The temperature reached inside the cremation furnace is so high that only bones and teeth are left behind, although even these are altered by the extreme temperature. The rest will simply be ashes, which consist of dry calcium phosphates with some minor minerals such as salts of sodium and potassium. Sulfur and most carbon are lost as gases, although a relatively small amount of carbon may remain as carbonate. The actual ashes are thus useless, as they will not contain DNA. It is the bones and teeth that could potentially hold some DNA viable for analysis. However, after the cremation, the bones and teeth left behind are turned into a fine powder, a process known as pulverization. An important note they have here: the process of pulverization, along with the extreme heat the bones are subjected to, make extracting DNA a challenge. Nothing's impossible for Yahuah. The chances of successful DNA extraction are low. I guarantee you in his fire, in the end, there's going to be no DNA left to extract. Do you always manage to extract DNA? When it comes to extracting DNA from the bone shards of the deceased that has been cremated, it is important to understand that the chances of success are low. Nothing is impossible for Yahuah. To have the DNA still there, or to burn it to such a place where it will never be found again. The extreme heat tends to destroy all the DNA in the body, although in some cases we may be able to find some DNA that was spared from destruction by the heat of the furnace. Okay. That being said, there's going to be some bone burning going on. Because I can tell you right now, there's the first time with Noah, it was water. And water will not kill the DNA. It killed all their flesh. We ought to be dying to our flesh, right? But the next time it's going to be with fire. 2 Peter 3. Oh, I didn't know I was going to read this much. This is now, beloved ones, the second letter I write to you, in which I stir up your sincere mind to remember the words previously spoken by the set-apart prophets, and of the command of the Master and Savior spoken by your emissaries. So the emissaries spoke of the new heavens and the new earth, prophesied coming, death, resurrection, and second coming, whatever that note meant. knowing this first, that mockers shall come in the last days with the mocking, walking according to their own lusts. So stop mocking him, saying, where is the promise of his coming? Is this really happening? Is this really going on? Could this be the end? Are they making this up? Every little thing is going to be all right. Stop mocking him. For since the fathers fell asleep, all continues as from the beginning of creation. Just said that. For they choose to have this hidden from them, that the heavens were of old, and the earth standing out of water and in the water, by the word of Eloah, through which the world at that time was destroyed, being flooded with water, which doesn't kill the DNA. The righteous man was saved. The bones of the righteous man were saved. This self-same Noah. The bones of Noah. And the present heavens and earth are treasured up by the same word, the same DNA, being kept for fire to a day of judgment and destruction of wicked men, of wicked DNA, of those that have not Yahuah as their authority, pumping the blood through them, that are not resonating with the word of Yahuah. But, beloved ones, let not this one matter be hidden from you, that with Yahuah 1 day is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is as a day. Yahuah is not slow in regard to his promise, as some count slowness, like a frog boiling in a pot. But he is patient towards us, not wishing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance. But the day of Yahuah shall come as a thief in the night, in which the heavens shall pass away with a great noise, and the elements shall melt with intense heat. And the earth and the works that are in it shall be burned up. Oh, praise Yahuah. See, all these are to be destroyed in this way. What kind of people ought we to be in set-apart behavior and reverence? The earthly realm will be destroyed. The works, the DNA, and the people that do it will be destroyed. And the heavens will roll up like a scroll. Everything will be changed, and the DNA will be in its perfect order, from the micro scale to the macro scale. Verse 12, looking for and hastening the coming of the day of Eloah, through which the heavens shall be destroyed, being set on fire, and the elements melt with intense heat. But according to his promise, we wait for a renewed heaven and a renewed earth, in which righteousness dwells. So then, beloved ones, looking forward to this, do your utmost to be found by him in shalom, having added that which needs to be added, and subtracting that which needs to be added, so you are whole and complete, spotless and blameless. Praise Yahuah. Revelation 20. 11 to 15. And I saw a great white throne, and him who was sitting on it, from whose face the earth and the heaven fled away, and no more place was found for them. And I saw the dead, small and great, standing before the throne, and the books were opened, and another book was opened, which is life. And the dead were judged from what was written in the books according to their works. Did they have a DNA match, so that all that they did, their works were wrought in the DNA of Yahuah? Not what they... What was the intent of their heart? And did they do that? And was it of Yahuah? And the sea gave up the dead who were in it, and death and Sheol gave up the dead who were in them, and they were judged, each one according to his works. And this is, of course, the great white throne judgment. The second resurrection people have come up now. And death and Sheol were thrown into the lake of fire. This is the second death. The lake of fire is intense heat. There will be no DNA left. And if anyone was not found written in the book of life, he was thrown into the lake of fire. Because remember, we read that their name was blotted out of the book of life. And where did that blotted out go to? Marrow. It went to Marrow, their very essence. Revelation 2, 8-11. And to the messenger of the assembly of Smyrna, write, this says the first to the last. Isn't that interesting? The L to the Ta, I didn't realize that. Who became dead and came to life. He died so that we might live. His flesh died. The word returned not void. He never died. The flesh died. I know your works and pressure and poverty, yet you are rich. And the blasphemy of those who say they are Yehudim and are not, but are the congregation of Satan. Do not be afraid of what you are about to suffer. See, the devil is about to throw some of you into prison in order to try you, and you shall have pressure for 10 days. I do believe this is your second resurrection assembly. Be trustworthy unto death, and I shall give you the crown of life. He who has an ear to hear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the assemblies. He who overcomes shall by no means be harmed by the second death, which is the lake of fire, which is where the DNA will burn. We want to be in the first resurrection, ruling and reigning for 1,000 years, of course. But there will be a time when it's just over. Over. Hosea 2. Oh. Maybe. I would like to finish the study today. Hang on, my Bible, my scripture pages are sticking together. Say to your brothers, this is Hosea speaking to Israel. Say to your brothers, O my people, and to your sisters, O compassionate one, strive with your mother. Strive, for she is not my wife, nor am I her husband. Let her put away her whorings from her face, and her adulteries from between her breasts. Lest I stripped her naked, and shall set her up as on the day she was born, and shall make her like a wilderness, and shall set her like a dry land, and shall put her to death with thirst. Dry land, no life, no water, no seed. Just like the bones he told to come back to life. So here they were. And I shall not have compassion on her children, for they are the children of whorings. Because we teach our children that seed, our seed, that seed which is produced in them. For their mother has whored. Israel was a whore. She who conceived them has acted shamelessly. For she said, I go after my lovers. We read this in the beginning. Who give me my bread in secret, and my water, stolen waters, my wool, my linen, my oil, and my drink. What she is drinking, this is a picture of it not having the DNA of Yahuah Eloah, moistening to my bones, marrow to my bones. It's not what was breathed of Yahuah. Verse 13 to 23. Well, let me go back. I simply point that out because that was our original word that we started with, that we saw in Proverbs 3:8. 13 to 23. And I shall punish her for the days of the Baals to which she burned incense and adorned herself with her rings and jewelry, and went after her lovers, and forgot me, declares Yahuah. Therefore, see, I am alluring her to come be intimate with me. It's a hole for a post. It's intimacy. And shall lead her into the wilderness, and shall speak to her heart. And to give her vineyards from there, and the valley of Achor as a door of expectation. And there she shall respond as in the days of her youth, as in the day when she came up from the land of Mitzrayim. She was bridehood. That's in Jeremiah 2. And it shall be in that day, declares Yahuah, that you call me my husband, and no longer call me my Baal. And I shall remove the names of the Baals from her mouth, and they shall no more be remembered by their name. And in that day I shall make a covenant with them, with the beasts of the field, with the birds, Dana of the Shemayim, and with the creeping creatures of the ground. When bow and sword and when bow and sword and battle I break from the earth, and I shall make them lie down in safety. And I shall take you as take you as a bride. You shall be betrothed unto me forever. And take you as a bride, be betrothed unto me in righteousness, and in right ruling, and loving commitment, and compassion. And I shall take you as a bride unto me in trustworthiness. And you shall know Yahuah. And it shall be in that day that I answer, declares Yahuah. That I answer the heavens, and they answer the earth. And the earth answer the grain, and the new wine, and the oil, and they answer Yisrael. And I shall sow seed. That seed is in her for himself in the earth. Because we are on the earth, and the earth shall be made new. And this shall be the perfect seed that he has sown, the DNA of Yahuah. And I shall have compassion on her who had not obtained compassion. And I shall say to those who are not my people, you are my people, while they say, my Eloah. We're either going to go, as it said in verse 5, and go after other lovers. Bread, water, wool, linen, oil, and drink. Or we're going to shub and repent and allow Yahuah to become intimate with us, to be his bride. And a bride gives birth to the seed. She raises up the children. She raises up a physical picture of seed. And how does she raise them? By what she says, matching what she does. And the only way what you say can match what you do is to have the DNA of Yahuah that flows through you, because you can only be someone that you're not for so long. Jeremiah 50, 17 to 28. So who's after the bones? Who's after your DNA? Who could that be? Well, it's right there in the title. Babylon, or the enemy, is after your bones. Israel is a scattered sheep. The lions have driven him away. First the sovereign of Ashur devoured him, And now at last this Nebuchadnezzar, sovereign of Babel, has broken his bones. Why did he break his bones? Why did the sovereign of Babel break the bones of Israel? It's not talking about the sovereign of Babel had his bones broken. I mean, they're going to burn in the fire. Israel is a scattered sheep. The lions have driven him away. First the sovereign of Ashur, they went into Assyria, devoured him. And now at last, this Nebuchadnezzar, sovereign of Babel, has broken his bones. I guess we better pull it up. Jeremiah 50:17. So we only see bones here. Let's go to the Hebrew Old Testament. Oh, wrong verse. Okay, I needed to see something. This Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, is after, it just says he's broken the bones. We have no word for broken there. We have no word for broken in the Hebrew. Let's look at the Greek. Oh gosh, of course. I forgot about that. Okay, and here we've got devoured. But we have nothing for broken bones. Oh, isn't that interesting? I didn't notice that before. Okay. At last, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babel, guess what he's after? The bones. He's not even necessarily looking to break them, according to this. He's after the... Is he really after the bone? He's after what's inside of your bones. He's after the marrow, where the blood cells are made, that contain the DNA that are surrounded by water. He's after it to change it, to resonate with it, to be the essence of who you are, and the authority inside of you, the heart that pumps your blood, to cause you to do what you do, and cause you to think what you think. Cause us. I don't mean to be pointed with a you, I have no excuse. It causes us to do what we do that is against Yahuah. Say what we say that is against Yahuah. This is why we must take every thought captive to Messiah. Because he's coming in there. He's coming in a lot of ways now, but that's one of the ways he's coming in. Because he can't get to the seed, if it's the seed of Yahuah that's planted inside of us, without some kind of change. Either physically changing the DNA, or coming in through your mind, through your eyes, through your ears, even shooting thoughts into your head. That we need to be so familiar with the truth that when the counterfeit looms on the horizon, we recognize it immediately. Babylon is after our bones. Therefore, wow. Thus said Yahuah of hosts, the Elohim of Israel, see, I am punishing the sovereign of Babel. And praise Yahuah for that. And his land, as I have punished the sovereign of Ashur. And Babel was the place of the confusion of the language, and the language works just like DNA. It works just like the grid. What is on a macro scale is on a micro scale. And I shall bring back Israel to his pasture, and he shall feed on Carmel and Bashan, and his being shall be satisfied on Mount Ephraim and Gilead. In those days and at that time, declares Yahuah, the crookedness of Israel shall be searched for, but there shall be none. the sin of Yehudah, but none shall be found. For I shall pardon those whom I leave as a remnant. And the remnant is those who press the beginning. We saw the seed in the beginning. We saw him hovering over the waters and breathing the seed in the beginning. We saw the mist that came up from the ground was full of the seed in the beginning. The rivers were full of the seed in the beginning. We are full of the seed from the supposed to be full of the seed from the beginning. The remnant comes from the navel root line, and we need healing to our navel and moistening and marrow, the correct DNA in our bones. Go up against the land of Merathaim, against it, and against the inhabitants of Pekod. Slay and put them under the ban, declares Yahuah, and do according to all that I have commanded you. There is a sound of battle in the land and of great destruction. Oh boy, we got the battle shofar going on. How the hammer of all the earth has been cut off and broken. How Babel has become a ruin among the nations. And won't that be the day? Won't that be the day? Fear Yahuah and turn from evil. Jeremiah 5. Spent a lot of time in Jeremiah. He is your prophet for today. Him and Yehezkel. 11 to 25. For the house of Israel and the house of Yehudah have utterly betrayed me, declares Yahuah. They have been untrue to Yahuah and said, It is not he. No dysfunction comes upon us, nor do we see sword or scarcity of food. Somebody's telling you that, they're a liar. And the prophets have become wind, and the word is not in them. Thus shall be done to them. This is correct. The prophets have become wind, and the word is not in them, and this shall be done to them, because they're all for themselves. Every little thing is going to be all right. Therefore, thus says Yahuah Eloah of hosts, because you speak this word, see, I am making my words in your mouth fire, and this people wood, and it shall devour them. I bet that's the word for the tree. See, I am bringing a nation against you from afar, O house of Israel, declares Yahuah. It is an enduring nation. It is an ancient nation, a nation whose language you do not know, nor do you understand what they say. It is a confused language. We need to have the essence of us be the DNA of Yahuah. Their quiver is like an open burial site. All of them are mighty men. And they shall eat up your harvest and your bread, what your sons and your daughters should eat. And they shall eat up your flocks and your herds. And they shall eat up your vines and your fig trees. With the sword they shall demolish your walled cities, in which you are trusting. Trust in Yahuah. But even in those days, declares Yahuah, I shall not make a complete end of you. Some will be left to be the bride and be in the first resurrection. You'll have to look at that word for complete if you want more information on that. And it shall be when they say, Why does our Eloah do all this to us? Then you shall answer them, As you have forsaken me and served foreign mighty ones in your land, so you shall serve foreigners in a land that is not yours. Declare this in the house of Yaakov, and proclaim it in Yehudah, saying, Hear this now, O foolish people, without heart, without the proper authority inside of them to pump the blood, who have eyes and see not, and who have ears and hear not. Do not fear me. Do you not fear me? Do you not follow the Torah? You're supposed to fear Yahuah and turn from dysfunction, declares Yahuah. Do you not tremble at my presence, who have placed the sand as the boundary of the sea by an everlasting law, and it does not pass over it. Though its waves toss to and fro, they are not able. Though they roar, they do not pass over it. But this people has a backsliding and rebellious heart. The authority inside of them that is pumping the blood is not fully Yahuah. And they have turned aside. They have turned their head the wrong direction. Turned from evil. No, they have turned to evil and gone away. They do not say in their heart, let us now fear Yahuah our Eloah, who gives rain, both the former and the latter, in its season. He guards for us the law of weeks of the harvest. Oh my. I mean, what a picture. What harvest? Are we full mature heads ready for the harvest? Your crookednesses have turned these away, and your sins have kept the good from you. For among my people are found wrong men who lie in wait as one who sets snares. They have, there's tares amongst the wheat. Let me tell you, there's wolves in sheep's clothing. They have set up a trap. They catch men. As a cage is filled with birds, Donna, so their houses are filled with deceit. Therefore they have become great and grown rich, kind of like the people in Job 21:24. They have become fat. They are sleek. They also overlook the deeds of the wrong, calling evil good and good evil. They did not rightly rule the cause of the fatherless, so that they prosper, and the right of the needy they did not rightly rule. Fear Yahuah and turn from dysfunction. Don't fear man and turn to their evil, and fear Yahuah and turn from dysfunction. Turning one way by default means you've turned away from the other. Proverbs 3. Let's go back to where we started. 1 through 8. What do I got? My snarky's coming out right now. Thanks. Yeah. My son, do not forget my Torot. Fear Yahuah. Fear comes from the Torot line. And let your heart, the authority inside of you that pumps the blood, watch over my commands. For length of days and long life. Maybe here and now, sure, but definitely then and there. And peace they add to you. Shalom, adding what needs to be added by following his Torot and his commands with all our heart, will by default subtract that which needs to be subtracted. Let not loving commitment and truth forsake you. Everything from the L to the Ta is the truth. Bind them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart. Thus finding favor and good insight in the eyes of Eloah and man. Trust in Yahuah with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. Know him in all your ways, all of them, and he makes your path straight. Verse 5 and 6. We're going to go to it now. I have no idea what we're going to look up, but we're going to find out. Trust in Yahuah. If you do that with all your heart, you will be in the bride. Lean not on thy own understanding. We're not going there. In all thy ways acknowledge him, know him, become intimate with him, and he shall make thy path That's where we get Ruach. It's going to have the Spirit in you. He shall make your path what? Straight. And who are those who are straight? What are they going to be? The remnant. And what if they had? Healing to their navel. In the essence of who they are in their DNA. Moistening marrow to their bones. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear Yahuah and turn from evil. It is healing to your navel and moistening marrow to your bones. Psalm 23. Yahuah is my shepherd, I do not lack. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters to that place of comfort. He turns back my being. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. When I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil. My head is not turned towards the evil. I do not fear it. I fear Yahuah Eloah. He is healing to my navel and marrow to my bones, the essence of who we are. For your rod and your staff, they comfort me. And what happens at the marriage? You spread before me a table in the face of my enemies, the marriage supper of the Lamb. You have anointed my head with oil. My cup runs over. Anointed are priests and prophets and kings. We are prophets to be planting the seed into the house. We are kings and priests according to Revelation. Only goodness and loving commitment follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of Yahuah to the length of days. Last slide. Song of Solomon. Chapter 7. Chapter 7, verses 1 and 2. Maybe. Okay. We're going to pull up Song of Solomon 7, 1 and 2. How beautiful are thy feet with shoes, O prince's daughter. The joints of... let me go back to my scripture search. How beautiful are your feet in sandals, O daughter of a noble. The curves of your thighs are like ornaments, the work of a craftsman's hands. Your navel is a rounded bowl. Let it not lack mixed wine. Wisdom mixes her wine. Blood and water, the testimony and the commands. The DNA surrounded by the water. Your body is a heap of wheat, hedged about with lilies. We're not going to read the rest of chapter 7 because it's so allegorical. Thy navel. Again, we saw thy navel. Your navel. Your navel needs healing. It's like a rounded goblet. GN. Round, something that is round, an ornament. Why? Because you have turned yourself from that which is evil and secured yourself to the true head. That is what the remnant does. It's like a rounded goblet. And where does this come from? A container enclosed by walls. Okay, so your navel is a container. It's like a rounded goblet, a container enclosed by walls. Where are we going? We're going to the garden. What is this place? The place that the thief is protected from. Because the bones of the thief is going to burn in the fire. There's going to be none of this DNA left. No more sin, no more sorrow, no more pain, no more suffering. The navel of the bride is like a rounded goblet. The remnant has to turn their head from dysfunction to function, so there's healing to the navel, so they can go back to the garden. And the belly is a heap of wheat set about with lilies. The womb, the belly, is like a heap of wheat set about with lilies. Gonna be the harvest. Gonna be one of the harvests. The first or the second. The wheat or the barley. This is a picture of the bride. Praise Yahuah. We thank you, Yahuah, that there is such beauty in your word that we can look around from the Shemayim to what's inside of us, Yahuah, and we can see everything was created by you and through you and for you. Yahuah, give us the gift of, each of us, the gift of repentance today, Father. Yahuah, let us be so familiar with your word that when the counterfeit looms on the horizon, we recognize it immediately. And Yahuah, I beseech you, Yahuah, for each and every one of us, that we recognize the attempted wearing out of the set-apart ones in this day and this hour. And we allow it not to happen, Yahuah. We love you, Father. I love you. In Yahuah's name, hallelujah. Hallelujah. Yahuah. Thank you, Father.